We have a serious show this evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be joined by Mickey Summers. We've also got Lee Sullivan in the studio live with us this evening. We're going to be concentrating on paedophilia, child networking, and all the sordid things that have come to light with this joking inquiry by the name of yewtree. Again, we're joined by Mickey Summers. Where do you want to kick us off, Mickey?
Good evening from a dank and dismal Nottingham. I don't know that much about yewtree that you went on about, but as you mentioned yewtree, I did get in touch with yewtree over travel because I actually DJ'd in one of Pete Stringfellow's clubs called Cinderella Rockefeller in Leeds in 1974 and 75, and I did see Savile and Stringfellow with the young girls, but I contacted them and I never wrote another thing, so maybe Stringfellow, you have to ask yourself, is Stringfellow involved, because he's another one that's high profile and believes he's untouchable. I'd like to hear what your comments would be.
Well, I can tell you now that I've seen Bill Maloney's work, including Stringfellow and the survivors that he's brought forward, and Stringfellow seems to be the setting that they get these young kids high on drugs and whatnot before they take them off to be abused in the most horrific manner. Now, as I said, we also have Lee Sullivan in the studio this evening. Where do you want to start off with this, mate?
Right, well, I'll just give you a quick summary of what happened. Myself and my friend, Jason Little, we've done a story on this in the Daily Mirror. I don't know if anyone got to read the article, but it was just explaining basically how we met up with him and the like. And, I was abused by him for, it was only a short period of time, it was about 7 or 8 weeks, whereas my friends, Jason, I didn't see him after, I totally lost contact with him, and 30 years went by before I see him again, because he came to he turned up for my court case. He was going to be a witness. Obviously, Smith killed himself.
Yeah, what was the name of this driver, Lee?
David Smith.
Right, yeah. So what Lee's touching on here, and you'll have to bear with us because, as you can imagine, it's very difficult subject for Lee to speak about here this evening. But this fella Smith, just for the listeners to know, he was Savile's driver, and not just Savile's, but he used to drive for the BBC, or at least the stars, he'd get them from A to B and things like this. Now, he worked for the BBC for how long, Lee?
I'm not sure how long he worked there for, but I know he must have had quite a bit of influence in there because of the access he had, to be honest. I know my friend Jason was given a pass to come and go as he pleased, basically, in the studios. And I think he was only 12 years old, right?
That's the BBC studios.
Yes. Yeah.
So there we have it. We have a 12-year-old boy who's obviously a victim at the time of this beast, who's been given perks to the BBC and a pass to go and come and go as he pleased. This bastard, he abused several boys, and when it came to the trial, Lee, the day before, or on the day of the trial, he suddenly killed himself, didn't he?
Yeah. Well, I think he might have done it like early hours of the morning or something. But what happened was he didn't turn up at the court, and so they sent the police round, obviously, to get him, to bring him to the court. And they ended up, I think, breaking the door down and found him dead, apparently an overdose of some description.
Now, we've had a couple of freedom of information requests on backing up everything that Lee and I will present. But, Mickey, how familiar is this story, mate?
it resonates with a lot of stuff that I remember kind of from the 70s when I was on a few DJing circuits. Everyone knew what Savile was about. There's several others from BBC Radio 1 who were prominent DJs back at the time. Their names were bandied about and nothing came to light. But as we saw in recent times, there was Dave V. Travers and a couple of others brought to trial, found guilty and jailed. But it took a long time to actually happen. People reported it over the years, and just like here in Nottingham, where kids reported abuse in children's homes, people reported Travis and all the rest of them. No one listened, because in the eras that we grew up, kids were seen and not heard, and there was no doubt to be attention seekers, you know, when in fact the only attention they needed was for someone to sit and listen and hear the truth and do something about it.
Yeah, and even the institutions that are set up as fronts, I mean, there's certainly been allegations of Esther Anson's child line, for an example, that would be the first alarm bells then, if somebody of high prominence would be accused of something and went to a certain organisation, then it would be like a heads up to these organisations, like the Paedophile Information Exchange, and like all these other networks that seem to be slowly coming out. What do you think, Nick?
It takes time, to kind of rattle the cages of people like Esther Ransom and these people that are prominent in the BBC. But it takes one to start wobbling, and it's like a jelly. Once it starts wobbling, it don't stop. And I think really, in the reality of it all, it took Savile after he died, to actually blow it wide open and actually have people look seriously at the BBC. I have my own version of what the BBC stands for, and I'm not about to put it out on air.
It's not just the BBC. It seems to be institutionalised through politics, all the way to royalty. It's rife, basically, Mickey, isn't it?
It's been rife for years, but it's only in recent times where people have started to learn to communicate, and they actually see one case open up, and someone be man enough or woman enough to stand up and point the finger of accusation at someone, and like we've got now, we're starting to get the domino effect that's going to rattle all the way across the country. We've already seen it yesterday in Nottingham. Mass resignations, they've got no counsel in effect, and it's going to happen here. What we need now is public inquiries. In Nottingham alone, they're actually planning to have what they call a review, which means that they just look at what happened, ensure that there's current safeguardings, and they move on with no investigation whatsoever. What it's going to take is something like the North Wales inquiry. They promised us an independent inquiry here in Nottingham. That was agreed by Chief Constable Chris Eyre, Crime Commissioner Paddy Tipping, John Collins, the one who I dubbed the Beast of Nottingham. He's the head of the City Council, and Alan Rhodes, the head of the County Council. I've got a letter from my MP with a copy of another letter that came from Collins and Rhodes, explaining their plan to have a review and to elect their own chair. What we need in Nottingham is a fully independent, survivors-led inquiry, like they've been fighting for in London with the failed CSA inquiry. Anything in Nottingham, it has to be survivors-led. We have to approve who sits on that panel. We have a body now, the Nottingham CSA Inquiry Action Group. We're going to fight it. We've got a couple of MPs, we've got a couple of MEPs If we have to take it all the way to Brussels and Strasbourg, we're in this for the long haul. And Nottingham, well, they better start looking where we're coming from, because it's an election year and we're going to be at them at the polling stations.
Yeah, that is one way of doing it, but I mean, this goes all the way to the top, and that's been well documented in this yewtree farce, that they just set up barriers, don't they, in order to protect the perpetrators of these crimes, rather than to try to get justice for the survivors. Is there any confidence with having any inquiry set up by this system, really, Mickey?
We've had no confidence at all in what's been proposed by Theresa May. I've got reservations about this woman they're going to bring in for the National Inquiry, a New Zealand judge. I mean, part of the Commonwealth, maybe part of the establishment, but I spent about an hour this morning trawling the internet on stuff on her, and she does come across as not part of the establishment. She definitely comes across as somebody that can't be bought off, and open-minded, as Mandy said. But it's whether the other people that have been involved at the Westminster end with the abuse survivors, whether they approve of it. And on that subject, there's all these groups up and down the country. We knew nothing about what was going on in Westminster until we got a guy called Robert Caldine contacted us to tell us that the inquiry thing was being held at the House of Commons a few weeks back. And fortunately, we had the funds to go down there. But people need to unite, because wherever you've got fragmented groups all the way across the country, you've got 1,000 voices that aren't being heard. Unite as one, and maybe the country will hear and stand up and be counted.
Well, we've got to. I mean, it's got to that stage now where it's absolutely in your face. You simply cannot be ignored no more. I mean, this is not an easy subject for people to face. What I would say to those people who can't face it is, well, spare a thought for the survivors who have to speak about it, because if they are brave enough to come out and tell it, then at least have the dignity and the decency to listen to these people. Because, again, one of the primary weapons to shut survivors down is that they know how hard it is for them to come out and tell the truth, and things are put up, especially going back 30 years ago where it just simply wasn't believed. These times are changing now, Mickey, and it's not being ignored as much, is it?
I mean, I can only speak for what's going on up here, and I'm an irritant, I'm buzzing around them like a mosquito. They don't know when I'm going to appear next and what I'm going to hit them with, and that is the way to keep them on their toes. I mean, the crime commissioner in Nottingham, Paddy Tipping, well, he's going to be the next one to go. We had Sean Wright, the crime commissioner in Rotherham, that was forced into resignation, and if he doesn't man up and stand behind some of the commitments that he recently made, I make a promise. I will take him down and I will make him the next Sean Wright. Once one goes, we will have the domino effect. Tipping goes, Chris Eyre goes, the chief constable. Chris Eyre goes, John Collins goes. John Collins goes, the whole system will collapse. And then maybe we might get to the truth. There's crimes that have been committed outside of the abusers, acts of malfeasance, destructions of records, and other abuses of others other than myself. In more recent times, we can't get information because they've locked it away in solicitors' offices. They've put the equivalent of D notices on most of the files pertaining to most of the children's homes in Nottingham. We can't get no justice because those files are locked until 2050 and 2056 and 2057. I'll be long gone by then, as with a lot of the others. What chance do we have? We've got to take them down from within.
It's every single man, woman's duty in this country to, this stops now, and we need to come together and make disciplined moves and actions, because we can no longer trust our politicians, guys. It's self-evident, it's a painful fact that these people are protected. I just see some footage, I see, Mickey, it gets to you, man.
Well, I'm Mandy, by the way. I'm
man.
And what happened is Mickey was staying in Purley, and he was trying to fight his case in Nottingham, which was too much for him, travelling up on the train, so he came and stayed with me to fight his case. Now, I say to these people out there that are listening tonight, just look at your children tonight in your room and think of the things that these children have done to them and how they would feel if someone was doing that to their children. Now, I know for a fact, if my daughter came to me now, she's 30, and said to me, Mum, 15 years ago, so-and-so raped me. Now, would they sit there and take this? Because I wouldn't. I'd be out there saying, right, that person's going to pay for this. And what you've got to look at it is, it doesn't matter how historical it is, because people don't get this historical part. Right? It's not historical to the survivor. The survivor lives with this every day of their life. And it has a knock-on effect, because some of these people turn to drugs, to mask it, they turn to alcohol. So we end up with the effects of that, and end up in prison. I know that for a fact, because my own son-in-law was a Beechwood survivor, and he ended up a life of being in prison until he got with my daughter a year ago, and we've sorted him out. He's stayed out of prison, he's turned his life totally around, got a full-time job, turned his life around, and he's now trying to move on, and he's just in the process of trying to access his records, which I very much doubt he'll get, because we said they put the equivalent to like a D notice on. But he's been, it's not just with child abuse, people need to get, some of these people were let down all their life by social services and social workers that just did not do their jobs. And you're finding with these social workers, I can give you one example with Rotherham. There was a social worker called Pamela Allen. She failed in Rotherham, so she was shipped out to East Riding, to where Alison Michalska is, who is now heading Nottingham Social Services. But she was shipped out there, she failed there, and now she's back in another top manager's job back in Sheffield, so back in Yorkshire. Now, these people, what seems to happen is, these failing social workers move around these jobs all over the country. They move one way, the children move the other way that are being failed and abused. And it's just not on. And these people are getting paid top salaries. Now, I say to people, if you don't get the historical child abuse, and you can't say, oh, well, we don't agree with this and it's historical and all that. Well, I tell you what they need to get. They need to get the fact that we've had over 280 inquiries up and down the country into this child abuse, which is costing the taxpayers millions of pounds. Now, hopefully they'll get that, because they're wasting money chucking at it to cover it up. People don't get it one way about the historical child abuse. They need to get it the other way, that they're wasting vast amounts of money. Money could have sorted this problem out in the beginning, but they chose to sweep it under the carpet. Well, it's 2015, and 2015 is going to be the year that these child abusers, the voices are going to be heard, the little people are going to be heard. And these little people, if they're listening tonight, now, we know that the police don't listen to you. We know sometimes the council don't listen to you. We say to you, join a group that you feel that you can trust. I'm not saying that which group, because there's a few. Join a group that you think you can trust. Get talking to people and let the group help you. Because as a group, you're bigger. And you've got a bit more protection. Join a group, let them advise you. There's some good people in these groups that have got good advice. Some of the counsellors, some from counselling, and they will point you in the right direction. So if you're frightened to go to the police at first, or any local authority, definitely go and join a group first. Also, be very careful, I say this to survivors, be careful of the solicitors you choose as well. Because some of these solicitors in the area where you live, like in Nottingham, for instance, where we are, we also know there's a few solicitors that are in the council's pocket that don't always act on the interest of the survivor. My son-in-law personally has come up against this, where he has got a case, and he will be listened to now because we've got the correct legal procedure going on. So we say to people up and down the country, create your own CSA action group, all come together, appoint the chair that you want to on your panel, start putting your points forward, all start listening to each other, and then take it from there, because you'll all learn from each other. And as I say, safety in numbers. There's a lot of people that are scared. So I'm going to pass you back to Mickey now, and Senator said, good luck to all of you. But just try and get the fact that it's not historical, it is still going on today as well.
It's a revolving door, these things, and as far as the money goes and the 200-odd inquiries, then I'm afraid to say it, folks, but that's intentional. They're making money off it. They feather their own nest with it. It is not an opportunity. These people will not miss an opportunity to make it back. And yes, it's a waste of money, but they love that because it goes straight back. It goes straight back to the private shareholders, these legal firms, this, that, and the other. Now, Lee, you want to touch on something, mate?
Yes, just something that Andy was saying there about joining groups. Now, my advice for survivors, victims, I've joined a group myself, which is the Pie and Mash group, which is headed by Bill Maloney, and some absolutely wonderful people on there. And I'll give one person a mention who's on there, a woman by the name of Sarah Reeves. Absolutely fantastic woman, what she's been through. And she's the sort of person to do anything for anyone, basically, to try and help. And, I mean, these are the sort of groups that people need to join, because they are, it's a very big group, this is, the Pie and Mash one. And they do a lot of demonstrations and trying to get a message out to people and out. And it's a very, very supportive group. I just recommend, highly recommend that group.
Thank you for that, Lee. I'm just going to turn to Lee's partner, Diane, a second, Mickey, because Mandy touched on something there that is sometimes overlooked. Diane, would you please go into how indeed Mandy's quite correct that it's not historical for the survivor, that indeed they have to live with it day in, day out, and some of the things that you yourself as a pillar and a support, can you just give our listeners a feel, because each aspect is this, it's not just one victim here, or one survivor.
Oh, no.
There's a family, there's friends, there's loved ones. They damage a whole spectrum of a child's life. So yes, over to you, Di, please, if you would.
When Lee actually went through all his abuse, he broke down, really. He was crying for help, but nobody's seen this as him asking for help. He went to drugs, he went to alcohol, social services were involved. He went to all these schools for children that were misbehaved because everyone had given up on him. His parents couldn't understand why he'd gone the way he had, because he kept it in. 20 odd years later, we found out that actually he has got complex post-traumatic stress disorder. The knock-on effect of this was he also has fibromyalgia, he suffers from depression, from anxiety, he gets night terrors. So the list is endless, and it all comes back to the abuse. It all stems back to the abuse that the government and the society and the establishment don't want to admit that happened, because they just want to sweep it under the carpet.
I'd really like to touch on quite a bit of my story, actually, how I came into all this. My family life as a kid wasn't too bad, you know. until a few things started happening that created a little bit of dysfunction that, as a kid, I couldn't process. So I started running away from home, or when things kicked off, I'd run away and hide under the covers in my bed. And eventually, because it was summertime, I ended up on the banks of the River Trent in Nottingham. I actually got groomed by a paedophile who became known to the family. I stayed in that man's grip for years, but as time progressed, things were going on in my school, and we ended up on a school trip to London, and I ended up sat next to a teacher named John Bowley. I don't mind naming them because if anyone from Nottingham City Council or Nottinghamshire Police are listening, I will continue to out them, right, by name. This teacher, John Bowley, who'd been dismissed from teaching at a school in Bells Lane, Nottingham, for acts of paedophilia against children. He was reinstated to work in the city, so he's got from county to city, and they actually had a thing called the Z list back in those days of expelled employees for the things that they do on CRB checks today. The only way you get through the back door is by someone in authority, and I believe, and I state it loud and clear, that there's every potential that the man who brought John Bowley through the back door was probably my child rapist, Alan Smith, who was the director of social services for both the city and the county of Nottingham. I ended up sat on a school trip to London in St. Peter's on this coach, and I ended up being taunted by my classmates for weeks, and I ended up acting out, hurling chairs around and abusing school teachers, like kids do, because I couldn't process what was going on, and I ended up in front of the headmaster. The headmaster's name was Peter Howard, and he's just another monster of Nottingham. He dished out lots of corporal punishment, and I believe he got his kicks and sensual gratification out of physically abusing kids. He actually sexually assaulted me in his office, and that was the reason why I refused to go to school. From refusing to go to school, I'm having a truancy officer sending letters to my mum, and I knew what they were, and I did what all kids do. I made sure she didn't get letters. And one day there was a visit to the house, and my mum was confronted by the truancy officer, and that's where my time in care started, in August of 1966. And my first place I went to was Beechwood, which is the main place at the epicentre of the Nottingham investigations. Fortunately, I was in and out of there, and I went to my grandparents until things started to really kick off in my family, and my parents started divorce proceedings. And my mum actually put me back in care because I was out of control, and that's when I first started witnessing the abuses at Beechwood. And I was warned to stay away from two particular staff members, one called Albert Lowndes and another called Martin O'Riordan. We believe that the fellow Lowndes is deceased from research that we've done, but the police are still doing nothing to try and trace Martin O'Riordan. There's also a thing happening in Beechwood where at night teachers will come in, and we all know school lessons happen during the day. I know from dialogue that I had with other residents at Beechwood what was going on. O'Riordan and Lowndes were abusing kids in an outbuilding where they used to keep garden tools and all kinds of stuff. And the school teachers were molesting and raping kids in the cellar area where there's alleged school lessons going on. But lo and behold, one evening before Christmas, my headmaster, one Peter Howard, turned up. On several more occasions. On one of these who did turn up, he saw me and I saw him, and the connection was made, and I believe Howie went to whoever else was involved in the paedophile ring and arranged to have me moved. I was moved to another children's home, and each place I went to on my journey, the same things were going on, and the other children's home I went to from Beechwood was called Hazelwood, and that was run by a couple. One the woman's name was Marjorie Hunt, and the husband, his name was Arthur Hunt, another sexual deviant that is part of the establishment in the Nottingham cover-up. The same two that was at Beechwood, the maintenance people, and they also doubled up as support workers. The main target of the abuse, and I know that there's several others that did get abused, was an 8-year-old boy. His name's Roderick. I do have his full name, and his full name has been given to the police, and I think it'd be a bit inappropriate to name him on public radio, but he was a regular target. 8 years old, he was mentally challenged, and he had the mental capacity of a 2 or 3 year old, and I doubt very much in his life that anything will have changed, but I can still remember, like it was yesterday, the first time I went to Hazelwood, and like an excited little kid, he came onto the door saying, "My name is Roderick, do you like me?" And the other things I remember about him were him sobbing virtually every night because he was the prime target of abuse in Hazelwood Children's Home in Nottingham. And all you could hear was, "My name is Roderick, they hurt me." We know what they've done to him. And I actually witnessed the children's home manager one Saturday morning, that same person that I mentioned, Arthur Hunt. You need to remember his name because the police have yet to find him. But like I said in one of the newspapers, you better find them soon because if you don't find them, I will. And I've already traced two, and I handed them over to the police, and I'm not about to hand the third over. That's nothing to the police because they do nothing. But I ran away because of what I witnessed with Arthur Hunt and Roderick. I ran away to Wakefield. I was reported as a missing child, reported to the police. There are no police records of me being reported. There are no logbooks of major incidents from Hazelwood Children's Home. Why? I state, and my supporters state, because Hazelwood was in fact a grooming house where they took children there to be abused. I was actually sexually assaulted by Arthur Hunt myself, and it was on the second time that I ran away. I ended up in deeper shit than what I really was already in. And I was taken to a police station in Nottingham, and I was actually fitted up on false charges, and that was at the bequest of Alan Smith. Alan Smith, he, in my time, was the deputy head of Nottingham City Council Social Services Children's Department. And I actually went through the process of telling him virtually my life story as a kid, everything that had gone on in my family, to being sexually abused by the one who groomed his way into my family, Joe Crosby. And I named and shared everything that was going on within the children's homes. And he told the police officer that the person I'd been arrested with, I needed to be jointly charged with him over some stuff that he'd stolen. And I needed to be put somewhere secure because of things that I'd reported to him. He had me put somewhere secure. That place was a remand home in Langport in Somerset, a remand home called Brooklands. And it was on the journey down to Brooklands that we stopped en route on the outskirts of Nottingham, between Nottingham and Trent, and pulled into a Trustful Cafe, and I was forced to commit an act of oral sex on him, and he raped me in the back of his car. And he told me, "You can tell what you like, but anything you said to me, and anything you tell anybody else, no one's going to believe you." And I did buy into it, but as things happened, we went down to Langport, Somerset, to this remand home, and it's the same as when you go to a prison. When you go to a remand home, the first person you see is a doctor, and my medical records actually show that I did report something, and in my medical records we have a note that we believe states child fondled, and there's an arrow that points to the word superintendent. That superintendent would have been the Superintendent of Child Welfare Services. The Superintendent of Child Welfare Services would have been one Alan Smith, my child rapist. And as such, there should have been an inquiry into that, but whereas the inquiry, there wasn't one. But I ended up going into the court system, and Smith actually pleaded guilty on my behalf at the juvenile court, and we have a record of that. But my father, who was away on business when I was in the court system, he appealed against the decision, and after going through horrendous abuses in several other establishments, including Division Hall of Police School, it went to the appeal court, Nottingham Court Sessions Court, which is the equivalent of the Crown Court today. And I was actually discharged on appeal, which means the case was dismissed. So here we have a wrongful imprisonment put away to be silenced. I went on to live with my grandparents in Wakefield because I had a childcare order on me under Section 13(6) of the Matrimonial Act. And a replica of my child record should have gone there, and it did go there. That too, just like everything else of all my records, it disappeared. Why do you think it disappeared? Because these people knew when their game was up, and I believe that Smith, or one of these paedophile rings game, was up in the mid-70s. The only thing that they can tell me is they allege my childcare records were destroyed in 1978, but I've dealt with this in my own way throughout my life. I've run away from everything. To get out of the childcare system, I joined the army in November 1970. I've done all kinds of stuff. I've had untold failed relationships. I've had a lifetime of drug addiction, in and out of prison. I've been and done a lot of things in my time, but one of the hardest things to do was when I came to the end of the road in 2003. The drugs didn't work anymore. The money was running out, and I was faced with either going back to acts of criminality to deal with an habit that I had, or do something about it. And I ended up in a rehab in Beckenham in Kent, and I was challenged on everything by my one-to-one worker. And when it came down to going through my childhood history, it came down to what had happened to me was in fact a crime, and I was persuaded to contact Nottingham Police. Well, I did that. I came to Nottingham. I was interviewed. We went around several places where the one known to my family lived and worked, and I also put on the table the fact that there's other things pertaining to children's homes, namely Beechwood and Hazelwood. And what we came to a decision to do was we would deal with the individual, so I got a feel of things and didn't get cross connections along the way. And the thing around the individual collapsed because they never investigated, and we never got round to looking at the children's homes. That case that collapsed is currently under investigation by the Independent Police Complaints Commission, and that was ordered by Crime Commissioner Paddy Kipping here in Nottingham last year. And Nottingham Police, they put out that there are no past failures. Well, I say to that, look at my 2003 case, that is a past failure. In 2003, I went to the council as well to report what had happened. Now, under the data protection laws, all those calls should be logged. None of the calls are logged. And the current Chief Executive, Ian Currier, who I say is responsible for the major cover-up, and he's probably responsible for the destruction of other records as well. But I believe justice will come his way quite soon. He's the main man behind the cover-up, and he is the one that was a target for a few friends of mine that when I was stuck in New York trying to get answers to things, they started a few protests. Although a small scale, and I have to give credit to a little group of people. A fellow from Birmingham named Graham Holden, I've known for 40-some years. A woman called Sammy Holland from Sandbach in Cheshire. Diane Hawley from Nottingham. Ian Johnson from Bury near Manchester. Louise Mann from Nuneaton. they started what's going on in terms of fighting the beast of Nottingham until I got over here. They gave funds to bring me back, and I'm back. You know, Operation Daybreak, the police investigation, they wouldn't come near me because they've already had part of my evidence, and it's so incriminating against the top tier of the establishment within the City Council and the County Council that the strategic partnership between the City Council and the police, right, is under scrutiny, and they're not having it. Well, guess what? They're about to have it, and they're going to have it large. And, you know, I came here to fight my case, and once it was all revealed how big this really is, it's moved on, and I get these things every day, like on Facebook, on Twitter, telephone calls, text messages, that I'm some kind of hero. I'm nobody's hero, right? I came here to fight my case. You see, I'm the type of person that sees the bigger picture. And in seeing the bigger picture, right, I've become the voice, yes, the voice of the little people, those yet to be heard. And I will make sure that this is a commitment from me that I will continue to be the voice of those yet to be heard. Just like your first said about Bill Maloney. Everything's not about Bill Maloney. I love Bill to bits, and there's someone beside Bill that, you know, I love her to bits, Brenda McNamara, and I love them all to bits, and any survivors who are listening, you know, yeah, get with a few people that make lots of noise. They not only make lots of noise, are seen to be doing something like we are in Nottingham.
I'll bring Lee in, but you.
Yeah, if quickly go back to my case. Now, in 2002, I mean, I was abused when I was 11 years old. And the first time I approached the police was in 2002. And I was 30 at that time, so it had taken about 19 years for me to actually go forward to the police. And I was in the middle of a complete breakdown as well, basically. And so I contacted the police because the reason I went to the police in the first place, it was because my accuser was he'd been convicted of sexual assault. So unbeknown to me at the time, one of those people who turned up in court was my friend who was, we both used to go to this guy's house, and basically both of us were abused by him. And it's only later on that I found out that it was my friend who went to court and ended up putting him away. Now, when I went to the police in 2002, I reported it, and basically they said, oh, it's going to be really, really difficult to try and find him, even though he was in prison at the time, serving a stretch, 6 years, I think, he was sent down for. I don't know how much he served, probably half of that, knowing the court system. But that was his, I believe that was his third time of being convicted of sexual offences against young boys, which again I didn't find out until later on. But I believe he was convicted first time in 1966, and then again, I think in the 80s, and I think again he was convicted obviously in 2002. Now, once I got told this by the police that it's going to be difficult to find them and everything, I mean, so I was already going for a total breakdown, so it just added fuel to the fire. I mean, it took me another 10 years to get myself back to a position where I felt sort of strong enough to go forward again. And on this occasion when I went forward, I reported it to the yewtree, part of the Jimmy Savile investigation, because obviously he worked for the BBC, so it was all linked really. So I went to yewtree. I've got to say, the officers I dealt with and yewtree are absolutely amazing. Now, they're your grassroots coppers, though, and as far as I'm concerned, most police at grassroots level, you know, they're just like, they are normal people who hate child abusers, and they'd rather be locking them up and not going through all the procedures to find out they get a suspended sentence or some crap. You know, they want to see these people locked up. The problem is the people above them. They've got their fingers are in so many pies, and they all know each other, and they're all covering each other's asses, basically.
And this is where I would say the gagging orders are very relevant in this cover-up, because the people who investigate and know the truth and the survivors, they've just been gagged up and forced to prison if they open their gobs. It's an absolute farce, isn't it?
Well, it totally is a farce. You know, I mean, I came back to England on April the 3rd from New York, and I was banging on the door of Nottinghamshire Police week in, week out, and it wasn't until I started attacking the Crime Commissioner on Twitter and Facebook and the Nottinghamshire Police as a whole, because I tagged them and everything on Facebook, and I made sure in all my tweets on Twitter, and I was creating such a public nuisance of myself that they ended up having to re-interview me. And going back to what the guy said about he got a listing here from a grassroots police officer. My liaison officer, Operation Daybreak, I believe in her. I believe that she wants to do a job. But the thing is, once it goes up to the sergeant, then up to the inspector, and then from the inspector to the chief inspector, then we go in Nottingham to a woman that I'm not going to say on there what I think she is. Her name is Helen Chamberlain. She should be thoroughly ashamed of herself, because I actually tried to contact Chamberlain through her office by telephone calls and by email, and I got her mobile number, and I got through to her after several attempts, and she said, "Who is this?" And I said, "Mickey Summers," and she totally rejected the call. You know, I have an ongoing professional standards thing going on about her at the moment, and I will bring out some book, you know, that she's the one who gets there and somebody above her is pulling the strings. Well, the only one above her is the corrupt Chief Constable of Nottingham, Chris Hare. I'd like to know why he left Leicester. I mean, we uncovered something off of the Leicestershire Police website, somebody by the same name was actually done for paedophilia, and I'm doing my little bit of research, because I'd like to see if this person is related, because it actually ties in with the time that he left Leicester Police and came to Nottingham. You know, there's no coincidences in all this. A lot of things happen for a reason. Maybe the reason is that the dominoes are falling.
Also, Chris there had these meetings at the Masonic Hall, and that seems a bit strange as well. I mean, you know, we've always said that we have to say these things. Are Masons involved in this? You know, we ask ourselves, are Masons involved in this? And it's a question that we ask ourselves quite regularly now, because it always seems to be, it goes so far up, and then we get this wall of silence, and that's the scary thing about it. And I tell you now, a lot of people don't come forward as well because they're scared. I mean, let's bring somebody else into the equation while we're talking as well. Look at Jill Dando. I mean, was she murdered? You know, she uncovered something and they didn't like, and was she murdered? You know, these are questions that people are asking. To say it was because, you know, they say Diana was because she was going to marry a Muslim, but was it? Or was it because she could, you know, spill the beans, you know, on what was going on, you know, in the roller circles? You know, we don't know. We don't know to the definite, but we've all got our own mind. And I think now, we're not all stupid. They might think we're stupid, but we've all got our opinions.
Another important point is the fact that most of these guys have been locked up for their crimes before. the fella who abused Lee, he had several convictions before actually being employed with the BBC. So again, I mean, it really, really makes you think, what the hell is going on here when you're having convicted paedophiles of the most heinous nature, crimes which we've all heard being described by survivors, going in and getting the same time as some smackhead who's nicked the TV from around the corner. You know what I mean? It's totally unacceptable. Part of Lee's recovery, he's been obviously trying to search for solutions and answers to all this, and he's had to do very interesting freedom of information requests concerning the paedophile chauffeur over the BBC. Can I just go over into them slightly, Lee, for our listeners, just so they can just grasp, I mean, it's just fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, well, basically, one of them. Now, I'm not sure how many people have followed the stories on the news. I tend to try not watch the news, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's just, half of it's just propaganda anyway. But there was so many articles explaining about how in the past they didn't have didn't do the appropriate checks and everything, and it was because of the systems. But I mean, you're told on the news and everything, basically, it was different back in them days. It was like a cliche now, with all the abusers that have been put down. It's been part of their defence as well. It's like, oh, the things were different back then.
Yeah, I did a few of them come out on news trying that, spinning that one.
Yeah. But I sent a freedom of information request, and basically my question was, if you're convicted of, say, avoiding paying your TV licence, will it affect your chances of getting a job with the BBC? Now, I was expecting some sort of reply, just saying, yeah, because it's a criminal conviction. But it was interesting in the reply I got, because it goes into a bit of depth about things would it be. Now, if I can read this bit. Right, in line with government legislation, the BBC is only entitled to undertake a criminal record check through the Disclosure and Barring Service, or Disclosure Scotland, if the role the employee is to undertake meets the description of a regulated activity or is employed to undertake a position or duty included in the Rehabilitation of Offenders Act, 1974, Exceptions Order 75. Now, it goes on to say, basically, that anyone who's going to be working with children, they have to check them. So the checks are already in place. So it's just a case of either someone's failed to do the checks, or he's been brought in through the back door by somebody.
Just like everywhere else, right? It's 2015. It's wake-up time. That people are starting to be heard.
I'd just like to bring into that what worries me and concerns me at the moment is we've got this G4S. Actually, I went to a police station the other week and there was a girl sat behind the counter, G4S on a top, taking enquiries. And then you go into the courts, G4S again, secret courts. And now we've got G4S running children's homes, which is becoming very alarming. So now this G4S are getting everywhere, this company. And we've got secret courts, like with Melanie Shaw, for instance, all secret courts, and then locked up in G4S prisons. And now we've got G4S children's homes. I mean, I'd like to hear some people's views on that as well. I mean, that company needs to be looked at because it's another way for them to hide these things and lock people up secretly as well, in my opinion.
G4S, they love it. I mean, they run the children's military prisons out in Palestine.
Yeah,
if you throw a stone at a big, massive tank at the age of 5 over there, you get banged up in a military prison.
And these forced adoptions that people are going through as well. We've got a family in Nottingham, for instance. The mother was hunted down. She had her children adopted. She got away. She was abused though. So they got the daughter's children, and now they're going after the other daughter's children. And when I look back on the risk rate, they've gone after all their children. And also what's happening there is these social workers are getting paid by up to £450 bonuses when they give these children for forced adoptions. And then the state's getting up to like anything up to 60,000 for each child that they foster, that they adopt out. It's unbelievable. It's a money trafficking business that's going on through these organisations. It is a form of trafficking. They're not all these social workers. These young girls that cry out for help and want support and think, oh, our social services here to support me. All of a sudden, they get themselves in this ring of being put in a corner and made to feel like bad mothers, and then the children took off them. And this is why you've got these families that are frightened, even though they need help, to go for help. And, we need a whole new shake-up of the social services system, if not dismantling totally, and something else putting in its place, because there's not anything to safeguarding children in that aspect. But I'm going to leave it there now, but I've really enjoyed tonight talking to you all.
I'd like to thank you very much for coming on.
Well, what I'd like to say in response to the thing about freedom of information requests that you did with the BBC, referring to Alan Smith, the former Regional Director of Social Services for both the City and County Councils of Nottingham, I did a freedom of information request to the City Council first, and the response came back that they have no records beyond 1974. Now, this is the response that I've got to every freedom of information request. They have no stat records. They've destroyed my records, and every avenue that I've gone down, right, no records beyond 1974. Well, that's the year that they all over to the county, to the unitary authority. They lost control of social services, but we know for a fact by the chief executive of the county council, one Anthony May, that everything that was achieved in 1974 was handed back in 1998. Now, Anthony May, I branded him already as a paedophile protector because when that FOI was rejected, I went straight to the county hall, and he actually wrote out an answer to the barrister, a guy called Jeff Russell, the FOI, and he told me they have that information within a few days. Now, the information of the question was for the job title of Alan Smith. I didn't want to know who was the former director. I already knew that. What I wanted was confirmation of his job title. Anthony May told me I would have that information within days. I didn't get a response for these days, but I didn't get really what I was wanted. What was wanted was the truth. But he neither admit nor deny that Alan Smith was the corporate director of social services. But as fate would have it, and this is about me being in the right place at the right time with the right people. And we'd already spoken to Tony Tipping, the High Commissioner for Nottingham. We already knew that he was a social worker from both the city and county councils. And we challenged him in a meeting, and we got him recorded admitting that Alan Smith was the director, the regional director, as he put it, his boss. And we took that to Operation Daymaker, and it was only then that the police and their crime commissioner are implicated in this now, and that's where I started to get interviewed. But they're still in denial of a lot of things, and as for Mr. Smith, well, he was invited to come to a police station, and I'd like to go to a little chat, and he's released pending further inquiry. But the police told me, and I'm going to name the officer who told me, her name is Detective Sergeant Fern Murdoch from Nottinghamshire Police Operation Maybury. She told me that he'd been arrested and bailed. Now, whenever anyone is arrested, he goes straight to the press office because any journalist is allowed to pick up on somebody's arrest and try and get some details. There's a total media blackout on Alan Smith because he was never arrested, and we don't believe he was ever bailed. But this is part of the ongoing cover created by a strategic partnership between two councils and a corrupt police force. But I had Radio 4 around the other day, and they had loads of the police, no comments about Mr. Smith, no comments about the top director. They had nothing to say at all. So I called the Operation Daybreak, and the conversations were recorded, and it looks like the corrupt Nottingham police are going to be really, really deep crap very soon. And I'm looking forward to when that show goes out, because at the end of the day, they're going to really get exposed for what's going on, and maybe the people of Nottingham will get woken up. But I've kind of said all I need to say, and I'd like to thank you for having on the programme, and I just have to understand maybe she has a few final words that she needs to say.
Yeah, I'd just like to say to people out there, when they're making phone calls to councils or, wanting to ask questions, there is I'm not exactly sure what it is, but I will pass it on to you. Vicky's got it on his phone. As soon as he starts picking up a call stick up to the council, it automatically records your conversation. So when people are dealing with people, like the lady said about taking names of who you speak to and making them accountable, if they get this out, your conversation is recorded, so you're covering yourself straight away. And that's just anybody dealing with councils and police and whatever. Do down this local app for your own safety. Wrongful told us about it, and I need to get out to the petfree.com, I think, or .org, that he's got his website, and he told us about it, and he has it on his phone, and he said it protects you. And that's just people like that. And just quickly,
absolutely. I mean, I do. Anyone who has to do any business with a scumbag to record on, you've got to protect yourself. You're quite right.
Yeah, and the last thing I would like to just add is people, before you actually go to the council or anything when you're going about abuse or the police, I always say to people, look at your story. If you were ever taken to a court, a hospital, anything, try and get confirmation of that record before you approach anybody. That way it can't go missing before you tell them. And that's another sound advice I give to everybody. And always look in the art. If you were taken to court under a will report or anything like that, there's always something in the minutes book, in the archive under the court that you were on the day you were. There's something nearly always logged. And it's worth just going in and getting photographic evidence of that. That is where we found, because all Vicky's records were destroyed, that's where I uncovered most of the records for Vicky that can prove him where and when he was. And I say to people, probably do a bit of research first. And if you haven't got anybody that can do that, I'm all there to contact, and I don't mind anybody contacting me, and I'll try and help you where I can. But that's all I've really got to say. There's no more I can really add to that, but I'd like to thank you for having us on your radio show tonight, and let's hope that some more people come forward, and it's not what I always say to people, it's not your shame, it's theirs what they did to you.
And it back to them.
And it back to them.
And what I would say is, from my point of view, is for those who's never been abused and have had it safe, listen to what's happened tonight and get off your asses and let's do something about it. We're coming together as a community. It's no good feeling sorry and sitting on the settee for these people. We need action. We need to get organised. So let's do it, yeah?
I've enjoyed the company of everyone in the studio and everyone who's contributed.
You're welcome, Mickey, and thank you too, Mandy.